The United Nations Secretary General has condemned in the strongest terms the attack by Hamas against Israeli towns near the Gaza Strip and central Israel, including the firing of thousands of rockets toward Israeli population centers. The attacks have so far claimed hundreds of Israeli civilian lives were told and injured many other more. The Secretary General says he is appalled by reports that civilians have been attacked and abducted from their own homes. We're joined now by Ravina Shamdasani, spokesperson to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Türk. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us now. Your principles has echoed the sentiments of shock about the not only attacks themselves, but the information that you're revealing on the grounds about numerous abductions. But we're also hearing stories that the same is happening in Gaza. So just tell us what the latest is on the ground and how you're looking to help resolve the issue by lowering the tensions, given the fact that we've just heard President Joe Biden say that Israel has a right to defend itself and its citizens, and America is ready standing by to help them.
We're very concerned. The situation, we were all very shocked this morning at the barrage of rockets that were fired into Israel by Palestinian armed groups. There is no justification for any attacks on civilians. As you mentioned, there was rocket fire. There were also abductions of numerous people, civilians, and we hear also members of the Israeli forces. There is no justification for that, and we roundly condemn such attacks. Since then, there have been a series of air attacks from the Israeli side into the Gaza Strip, and we are seeing many casualties already, deaths, destruction of infrastructure, as well as many injuries. We are very concerned that the situation is escalating, and the rhetoric has been escalating to such a high degree. We are calling for calm, especially in such a situation. It is essential that international humanitarian law is fully respected, that civilian lives, all measures are taken to protect and to prevent the loss of civilian lives and of civilian infrastructure, to ensure that civilians have access to their basic needs and the basic services.
And the United Nations has said that it's made an appeal to all sides that are involved to help de-escalate the situation, that key countries need to come forward to end the bloodshed. But I'm wondering, which leaders specifically are you looking at to help de-escalate? Because the interpretation by some of what President Joe Biden has said would not be seen as de-escalation. And you would like to share perhaps your point of view on this, that the Hamas preparedness of this attack, how it was relayed on video, it shows a very well synchronized organization that actually led credence to, leadership that is indeed welcome.
As I said, there's absolutely no justification for the attacks. We have to be clear on that. However, you do not want to fight fire with fire. You do not want to make the situation much worse, much more terrifying for civilians on all sides. We've been down this path before. More violence, more killings of civilians, more destruction of civilian infrastructure has not resolved this conflict over the past 70 plus years, and it will not resolve it today. It will only make it worse, and civilians will bear the brunt of it. They will pay the price. We are asking on all states all states with influence. So first and foremost, it's the states that are concerned that need to take steps to de-escalate the rhetoric, to de-escalate the violence. And then there are the states in the region which have a key role to play. And then you have the wider international community. There is a UN Security Council meeting as well that has been called for tomorrow. And again, this is the time to de-escalate, to negotiate, to try to do everything that leaders can do to avoid further civilian casualties. Unfortunately, so far today, what we have seen is very high emotions, very high rhetoric, And in fact, we're already starting to see attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank as well.
And actually, that's what I wanted to talk about, the rising death toll. In Zaytun, we're told that the casualties are also being fast reported, including in Khan Yunis, and a lot of these areas in the Gaza Strip are densely populated. They already are without medication and supplies. So as the UN, what are you hoping, the kind of coordination that you're looking for with humanitarian groups to help you be able to reach these people?
No, that's exactly right. And that is where the focus needs to be. The focus needs to be on ensuring that civilians do have access to their basic services, that any attacks that are carried out in full compliance with international humanitarian law, which means that all precautions need to be taken to ensure that civilians are not being disproportionately targeted in such attacks. The blockage of any kind of aid would be a violation of international law. The blockage of medical supplies or of any other basic humanitarian supplies would be a violation of international humanitarian law. The UN will be doing all we can on the ground and from a distance to be supporting the people on the ground.
We have, on the one hand, Prime Minister Netanyahu calling for the setting up of an emergency government to deal with the situation decisively. And we understand that Palestinians themselves are setting up groups and committees to ward off settler attacks. And I'm thinking about the tone for this environment to talk about negotiations, to talk about a sustainable two-state solution. Is it in an environment that you are able, just projecting into the UN Security Council meeting tomorrow, that there will be cool heads, that a discussion can be had that will not only assuage and bring down tempers, but have a lasting solution?
But this is exactly what we're appealing for. When civilians are attacked, when Israel faces such a barrage of rockets coming in, seeing civilians dying, having people been abducted, it's very difficult to remain calm. It's understandable that tempers are flaring, but this doesn't help anyone. And this is why it is even more important for us to be appealing for a de-escalation, to be appealing for all leaders, all those who have influence, to help create an environment where dialogue can take place, where some sort of resolution can be arrived at, which does not end up leading to even more hundreds of civilian deaths. As I said, international humanitarian law was created specifically for these circumstances, where the temperatures are very high and where there are these difficult situations of military aggression and military conflict. This is where international humanitarian law and international human rights law have to be fully respected. As you mentioned, Gaza is a densely populated area. The onus is on the Israeli military to ensure that any attacks that are directed at Gaza are carried out in full compliance with international humanitarian law, that the principles of distinction, of proportionality are fully respected. This is the time when you need the cool heads, and this is the time when you need all those with influence to help influence the temperatures, to bring them down.
And just very finally and quickly, it's always about the wording of a Security Council outcome. I'm also seeing, statements saying that European diplomats are firmly behind blaming Hamas for this latest attack. But we've seen a politician in the Knesset itself actually say Israeli occupation of Palestinian homesteads is the problem. And sometimes a lot of these problems come down to the semantics of occupied territory, the dates, etc. What kind of outcome do you think will satisfy those involved in the conflict to say that actually are cool heads that can be impartial in bringing an end to current hostilities?
what we need to start with is an end to the current violence, to again de-escalate this current phase in this very long-standing conflict that the people of Palestine and Israel have been suffering. First, the hostilities need to be ceased, and then we can talk long-term sustainable solutions. But really, the immediate priority is to stop the current round of violence from escalating any further. It's also an immediate priority to bring down the rhetoric. We've been receiving all sorts of messages through social media, on Telegram, on WhatsApp, inciting violence on both sides, celebrations of the killings of Israeli civilians. I mean, this is despicable. It's horrifying. It's terrifying. It is entirely wrong. On the other side, we have incitement to violence against Arabs generally, which again is very dangerous. So this is, again, the priority needs to be to tone down the rhetoric, to rein in any kind of incitement to hatred and violence, and to cease the hostilities. Only then can there be further discussion about the longer term.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Really much appreciated.